So we are here with Matt Christman of the Chapo Trap House to talk about the left and the 2016 election. How you could describe this process and how you could describe how things went so crazy.
Well, I mean, the short answer is there's a massive lack of popular endorsement of political norms, established ideas. People are basically continuing to accept the idea of this system as such.
The audio is there are some problems with the audio. The audio it's sounding somewhat weird.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
And now it's sounding better.
Okay, I might have my finger on something. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
yeah. People are, I think, on the side of the political spectrum. The norms don't hold it. The forms don't persuade. So people are willing to just sort of embrace it as sort of a spectacle that's always been to believe it, or to just go full out using their vote and their political ideas or identity as just a venue for just the basis expression of their psychological preferences, as opposed to anything like concrete that.
Hi. What? So what were you saying is that people and identity politics had played a great role in this kind of election?
Well, I mean, all types of politics. The entire time, especially white identity politics, and it's sort of a natural outgrowth of the fact that there's no longer concrete political or complete economic ideology behind either party. And so people end up continuing to sort of atomistic notions of themselves to express. And I think that's how we ended up with Trump, is that without really the option of expressing political preference.
The audio.
Traditionally, I'm sorry?
The audio also has had I think some problems. For moments sounds normal. For moments sounds kind of strange.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The place I'm at, the Wi-Fi doesn't work, so I'm trying to use it. Might not be right. Might have to try again later. I
don't know. Yeah. It's complex because for moments I lost what you were saying.
Yeah.
But the issue has been that a lot of this election has become so much personal. I think the last woke post by Lena Dunham is probably the greatest parody of this election, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but then that just shows where we are. How paralyzed we are by just even self-consciousness. Like that Lena Dunham thing, she's doing it as a joke, but it also is the thing that she's doing a joke about. But the fact that she's joking about it is supposed to somehow like alleviate the fact that it actually is the thing. So that's like this is weird postmodern take to everything. Even some supporters, there's like this sense that they're doing things just as a way to get a rise out of people. They're doing things. They're embodying, like when they all wear deplorable shirts and call themselves deplorable. There's a degree to which they're just playing a part, and everybody's sort of embracing this idea of themselves as part of this broader spectacle that they're all taking part in. And it doesn't really have to do with politics as we traditionally understand it, so much as personal expression in this giant reality show, basically.
Yes, I think that's fairly true, and well, I guess that this campaign has shown that MSNBC is more partisan than anything. The other day here in this podcast, I was talking with Mike Feinstein, who was the former co-chair of the Green Party, and he was actually telling that a lot of times even Fox News was more respectful of the Green Party and even of Jill Stein. And the blatant attacks that they have been against, especially from Joanne Reed, that I agree with the Cahill, which in the Chapo Trap House once said that if he will have to listen to Joanne Reed every day, he will have killed himself, because it's the lies are quite go beyond. I mean, she for moments sounds like an Alex Jones of the left. She put links to fake news websites. Um, she put a link to she said that Russia is communist. I mean, it doesn't make sense with Joanne Reed, especially a great part of the liberal establishment are saying about Jill Stein, and as Feinstein, which Mike Feinstein was the former co-chair of the Greens, said, he doesn't have problems with Hillary Dunn being a progressive, or a lot of the Wasserman Schultz, or a lot being a centrist, but why they don't call themselves centrists or neoliberals is because they know that isn't popular, like the neoconservative level. No one wants to call himself neoconservative, but despite that, they are that many Republicans, and despite that, no much Democrats like the level. I think that they are neoliberals.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the Democratic Party has this left flank that is basically their hostage, essentially, worship. The threat is always what the Republicans can be worse, and so it's very much in their interest to adopt the language of progressivism in order to obscure the reality that those people have the least influence of anyone in the Democratic coalition in terms of what its policies are going to be. And that makes them very hostile towards third parties because it's essentially, cutting in a market share that they have, to this point, have sort of a monopoly on.
Yes, I completely agree with what you are saying, and probably that is why also, despite it not necessarily is a third party initiative, the ballot referendum in Maine to do ranked choice voting could change really American politics if it wins, because it could allow for third parties to gain some moment. Um, I think the main Green Party has had a very complex history because they were relatively strong some time ago. There were some frictions, internal frictions that, to be honest, I'm not an expert in that internal frictions, but I think that if they could find a good candidate, maybe they could have an impact, maybe. And the issue is that for example, Hillary is a latecomer to the fight for 15, and the fight for 15 was started basically by the non-democrat left, by outside establishment liberal politics. It was a push that was started by Kshama Sawant of Socialist Alternative in Seattle. She was backed by the Greens there, by other smaller socialist outlets, even by some left-wing anarchists that were there and supported her. So it is, and Bernie never acknowledged that. He, despite having been born in the third-party movement and independent politics, he doesn't allow, he doesn't mention much of that. And the funny thing is that he praises a lot of times FDR, and he's tried to reconstruct American history, because a lot of socialists are not fans of FDR. A lot of, especially the old socialists, some of them are still alive. For example, David Moreno was the Socialist Party candidate in the 80s, is still alive, and they were opposed to the party because they think that when sometimes I think he has made a parody that socialists want more government than liberals, but actually Norman Thomas and other socialists were to a certain degree to the level of the government planning. Actually, there is a good book by Jack Ross, uh, curiously enough, a former writer for the American Conservative, on the topic of the Socialist Party history. And he was saying a very interesting thing, that for example, Norman Thomas late in life, he had a lot of praising for anarchists. Something that Bernie looks like he has lost that streak, that truly radical streak that made him. He has embraced the social democratic mantra that maybe could resonate, but finally it didn't make him win a victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue with Biden's campaign is that trying to basically meet voters where they were, which I think in America, due to a lot of reasons, it's with this two-party structure that we have, and so since he did sort of have to remake himself as a Democrat, that required him to sort of adopt a lot of the shibboleths of the Democratic Party, which includes praise for FDR and stuff like that. But at the same time, I mean, there's a degree to which anyone who wants to make an impact for contemporary American political scene has to reckon with how reactionary the last 30 to 40 years of American politics has been. And the reality of that means that there's a lot of work to do to get back to the point where socialism is decontaminating, and where people are willing to imagine things that go beyond the scope of even the New Deal. Because at this point, the New Deal, which many people point out is basically all Bernie is talking about, which everyone agrees does not constitute socialism, is still considered incredibly radical. I mean, no one could argue that Bernie Sanders would run the most explicitly left-wing major party candidacy in recent memory. And that's really less a statement about him than it is about how right-wing America's conventional wisdom is. And so, yeah, I think that he basically made the choice to try to appeal to people who are, at this point in American history, still conditioned in a lot of ways to be very hostile to notions of radicalism, and to basically reach them at a point where they might be incrementally amenable to it.
Yes, I think it's quite a very interesting conversation, because the issues that, especially for someone which is overseas, I happen to have read some books I buy it via Amazon, but basically overseas there are not much, especially in Latin America, there is not much books about American history. A lot of universities doesn't have any one book about American history, so less alone knowing something about the socialist tradition in America. So it's quite complex to know, and probably some of the people most involved in the history of the left become to a certain degree involved in now in some things about the history of the American socialism. And I think that despite it's an interesting story, it's not as much now as it could be, because Eugene Debs, I think, is a very heroic figure, and I think that he probably could be a greater figure in the broad socialist movement, but I think that a lot of times socialists in other parts of the world have looked with certain distrust the American left, especially because in a lot of parts is synonym of the Democratic Party, which is in a lot of degrees neoliberal. But in that regard, they like erase a great part of the history of the American left that is a very radical, very interesting, very profound history about men and women were committed to a social change in a very radical way.
Yeah, but the problem with America is that nobody knows anything. We live in this eternal present. It's 90%. The past really doesn't figure in there, so it's really hard to. It's hard to utilize historical examples as a way to galvanize or reach out to a broad electorate, because, like I said, people don't know anything really about American history in the United States either. So these figures don't really mean anything. One very narrow conversation among dedicated left wingers and stuff.
Yeah, I think that it's something that is happening. But I think that there is a public shift in the perception of socialism. It maybe is that I know that many people that have been interested in the Bernie campaign are not like political theorists with broad knowledge of Marxist theory, but I think that the war is losing its character as a forbidden war, and I think that could start to change the conversation about American politics, because for a long time there wasn't a prominent. I mean, Bernie was known, but it was seen as an exception. Berman is a very particular place, and it was seen like an exception. But with his victories in several places, has shown that there is a desire among the American electorate to something different. Something different than the Clintons, especially the DLC. Them.
Yeah, no, the Clintons are basically no one's preferred choice, and that's what makes this such a really just hallucinatory spectacle. Is you have literally the two least popular figures to ever run for a major party ticket, like running against each other. It's unprecedented, and I mean, hopefully, I mean, it's going to further the already pretty dramatic alienation that people have from any sort of investment in the political system as such. And the only hope is that it can be a fruitful alienation and not a nihilistic one. And that's going to be basically, a lot of it's going to come down to how the left responds to Hillary winning, which I think is what's going to happen, and whether they are willing to organize in the face of a Clinton presidency in a way that they were seemingly a little resistant to do with Obama at first.
Yes, because I was thinking that, for example, Denis Kucinich was probably one of the most decent Democrats on foreign policy, especially. He has come out with a very interesting article about that the Hillary presidency will mean a president's almost neocon foreign policy light, and I think that probably the saddest part of this election, it will be that a lot of so-called liberals and progressives have voted for one of the most hawkish candidates probably since LBJ, and I think that could mean a real shift in politics. I think that the realignment with neocons and Hillary is going to be a very complex realignment, because neocons are not necessarily all the same. I think that they have certainly different issues. The neocons like Gershman, who came from the Trotskyist left, I don't think that he will be really comfortable and the most religious, ally with the most religious right. And I don't know if he isn't. I don't know why Reagan gave him a job in the National Endowment for Democracy, because he he's not even registered as Republicans. But on the other hand, there are some neocons that could be have taken with the time some more socially conservative positions, and will be a little more difficult for them to go full on the Hillary bandwagon. But I guess that for a lot part, for the large majority of neocons, their focus is foreign policy. So I guess that they will collaborate in one way or another in a Clinton presidency. How liberals and progressives are going to deal with that.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think, yeah, foreign policy is going to be a huge challenge because the domestic realm, nothing's going to happen no matter what. We're going to have the same deadlock that we've had for the past 6 years. That's just going to continue indefinitely. So the energy is going to be in foreign policy, and it's all going to be in the neocon direction. There's going to be some sort of escalation in Syria. I think that's absolutely without question. And the way people respond to that is going to be very important and interesting. And I honestly don't know yet. A lot of it's going to
Well, you were saying that Syria, well, I think that Syria is an interesting case. I think that the left hasn't had a single position. Even some said that there are some factions of the left that are actually pro-Assad, and some of the people that are claimed to be, for some people, be pro-Assad say that they are not pro-Assad, but that they don't want U.S. government intervention there. So it's quite a complex issue, I think, for the left, Syria in a different way that other issues, because in Libya, I think that the more principled leftist position would have been done intervene, because but in Syria, because there are different actors in place, because it's a conflict that has reached an interest of different power players in the region, is kind of making the left think the issue with a different lens that maybe other cases.
Yeah, and that is going to be the challenge, because it will be, as you said, difficult to get sort of a coherent single leftist position on Syria. Like you said, it's going to be tough. And like I said, I honestly don't really have any predictions. I know it's going to be very front center for resistance to whatever's coming.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that I really going to be a mystery how this is going to be from now on is the issue of the relationship between the progressives and Hillary, because the WikiLeaks have shown that there is Neera Tadem and Podesta had a hate for progressives, and despite that they want their votes, but they don't want their ideas. Coming against the minimum wage, being against a lot of most positions of Bernie, including the free college tuition. I think and that thing I think I could agree with libertarians on some issues, because I think Reason has made an interesting article that so long as governments keep pushing certain funding for college, but not making free, it is actually more expensive. A more principled position will be just make it completely free, which here in Peru, the Nobel Peace Prize, which actually attended my university, which is the National University of San Marcos, the ancient university in the American continent, is attended here for free, and he's a libertarian, more or less. He's a great fan of Hayek, of Mises. He ran for president once, but and he said that he doesn't found a libertarian argument against free education, and it's quite of very Byzantine discussion that there is in the United States, even among so-called progressives, like this people in the Center for American Progress against free college education.
Yeah, the thing about the Democrats is that here, for a number of reasons, largely because of the Arabian Revolution in 1980, and then also just the peculiar sort of culture of Washington. There's this fetish, even on the quote-unquote progressive end, for all for any kind of ameliorative policy at any level, be it welfare, be it subsidizing college or healthcare, for it to be as complicated and moving parts as possible. Simplicity, the kind of thing like Medicare for all, the kind of thing like free college for all, there's an instinctive revulsion towards it, even though you can make a strong argument. And they fetishize this because they say, well, it's what's gettable, it's what's doable, it's there's so many barriers that it's real broad reform. And that's true, but they neglect the fact that these things have an electoral component and something that is easily understandable to a large number of people, like free college for all or universal health care. Those things can resonate with people in a way that the sort of ticky-tacky, means-tested stuff that requires a lot of, on the part of people, a lot of like decision-making and very minute maneuvering through bureaucracies is really alienating to people and hard to understand and hard to get excited about. But they basically want it because they fetishize this idea of incremental change for its own sake, and they also fetishize complexity for its own sake.
Yeah, I think it goes to the idea that was Thomas Frank making in his last book, that despite that it didn't have as many publicity as the other ones, I think it was a very interesting take. But I guess the media, because it was critic of the Democratic Party, never pointed much attention. The argument of Thomas Frank latest book is that the Democratic Party had a relationship, a special relationship with the professional class, and they tend to be meritocratic. So you see in the Democratic Party, especially in leadership positions, a lot of lawyers. People who went like the Clintons went to Yale. A lot of people who went to Ivy League schools, or even if not Ivy League, strong schools with good reputation, and they have Juris Doctor's degree, MDs, PhDs, and this is the professional class, and they are very meritocratic. But the kind of arguments that they make is that someone in the 70s could have worked and paid their way to college, but that was other times. College wasn't expensive as it's now, and that were different times. And I guess that the issue also is about this professional class, and I think that was what Thomas Frank was kind of missing, is that it also develops a very important relationship with the think tanks in relationship with how the policy should be made, because it's a very technocratic issue. It's not listening to the people, is listen to the experts, and the experts on the think tanks in DC are very hawkish. That's, I think, what explains the Democratic Party platform, and I think that the leadership of the Democratic Party is, at large, is very hawkish. It's very pro-NATO. It's very pro-intervention overseas, and I think it has a direct relationship with this meritocratic, bureaucratic establishment that doesn't allow the voices of the majority of the American people, that I think, because of the rise of Trump, have shown that Americans, their main concern is not bombing other countries, are issues like don't having to pay more for medicines for a really corporate crony capitalism deal. And I think that could show a path of Democrats to winning a majority, but that they don't like it because they still think that the professional class should be the goal, and others, they don't care.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like their vision is like is somehow it's creating a meritocracy basically where everything is ruled by a technocratic elite. But it's okay because everybody got their own merit. So went to charter school, they did well on standardized tests, and they maybe clawed themselves up from lower the lower classes in order to take over. And really, those are the only people that they can like imagine is that talented 10. Those people in poor communities of color and also places where there's white poverty, they can really only imagine a future for the ones who are exceptional. They can join them in sort of a rainbow coalition of technocrats presiding over this managed decline of everyone else as as globalization continues and as robotization and technical advances continue to just destroy the entire employment base, places nothing. So yeah, that's the idea. Is like if they're able to include the diversity of technocratic elite part of it, will have done their job.
Yeah, I think that is completely true because um, and I think that points that the next years of the Democratic Party will be crucial to define its future because I think that there is a profound crisis inside the Democratic Party. There's a lot of the activist base was very drawn down by the victory of Clinton, and they have so many hopes on Bernie. Some of them went to the Greens. They even some went to the convention. Actually, I don't know if this is broken news, but actually three guys. I don't know if there are guys or women, but the three persons involved in the Bernie campaign actually have switched to the Green Party, and according to the spokesperson of the Green Party of California, are going to run in the next city council election next year. So it will be interesting to see where they will go if these Sanderistas that are pissed off by the democratic establishment could go to another place. And I think that it's interesting the tweet that the other day Michael Tracy was put in his account. He was tweeting about Nevada and some people that he interviewed and some Bernie backers that actually are now voting for Trump because they wanted to vote for Jill, but the Democrats blocked Jill from getting on the ballot there. So yeah, I guess that the Democrats should think that they should give options to the people to express their anger, or if they will backlash. It could backlash them if they don't do it.
Yeah, the thing is that they don't view it as like they don't view it in that sense of people should have an opportunity to dissent from the options that they have. That they're very wedded to the idea that we have two parties, so you're incumbent to vote for the one that's closest dramatically distant from you. If it's closer in any respect from the other side, then it's your obligation to vote for that side. I mean, and you really, I mean, it's silly to blame them for it or to accuse them of bad faith or anything because I mean it is essentially a marketplace. Like that's the way we treat elections in the United States. It's an extension of the commercial culture at large. They're basically brands, and if you don't want to cede any of your brand market share to anybody else, regardless of what the people might want to do.
Yes, I think that is an interesting take on that because I think that the ostracism, how to put it, the way that the media treat Nader was worse than David Duke. I think David Duke probably has more respect on the media because he was uh, less of a threat than Nader is, and I think that is quite of sad. I mean, Nader is the biggest champion of a lot of progressive politics. Actually, last week here in Peru there was a forum on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and actually a guy from Public Citizen, the NGO that Nader founded, was here testifying against the TPP, and I think that things are valuable, are he speaks a lot about the civic society, and civic society goes beyond overseas, and it's something that the problems that America creates not only repercute in between the frontiers of the United States, but also in the world, and is quite interesting that this campaign has also been the campaign where a woman has been dismissed by many on the left, like Jill Stein, and the left say that they are sexist, but against Jill Stein they use the kind of same sexist attack that some Republicans use against Hillary. So it doesn't make much sense. I think that the hypocrisy of the most liberal establishment has shown that they are not that much different than Republicans in a lot of ways. I think that the WikiLeaks has showed that Hillary wanted to run against Trump because she thinks that he was the easy target, shows that there is an evil kind of thinking behind doors, that it said we should have the worst opponents so we can lose, we can win, and that is quite of a very strange kind of process of thought, because that has led to a Congress having people like Jeff Sessions of Alabama that want to even ban foreign students from universities. I mean that's something that not even Poland or countries where you have far right governments do. I mean, even that kind of countries, if you get into a university or as an undergraduate, as a graduate, I mean, the state doesn't do much bureaucratic, doesn't put many bureaucratic walls behind you and the country, relatively.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with revelation about wanting to get Trump, I mean, that's been a feature of politics. I mean, Nixon did that. He had an entire program dedicated to making sure McGovern was the person he had since 1972. And whenever you see that, it's really just an expression that the people running these campaigns are very cognizant of that. They don't have a constant agenda. They don't have anything for offer that should reasonably excite or mobilize the electorate. And the only thing they really have is fear of the alternative. And it is interesting to see behind it, you know, how aware these people are of their own intellectual and ideological bankruptcy, and how much contempt they have for anyone who isn't like them in that respect.
Yes, I feel that this election also shows that how eagerly are some liberals to embrace or dismiss the FBI, not by their actions, but by how it treats their favorite candidate. And the issue with Comey when he was favorable to Clinton, he was a hero, he was a something almost of a progressive superhero or something, and when he was thinking that there was a reason to investigate her, it was like he was a villain, he was Hoover, he was and now I guess he goes back to be a kind of superhero. And the FBI has been involved in many issues that are very dark, the spying, the COINTELPRO issue, the spying and literally the killing Fred Hampton, the Black Panthers. I mean, it was really involved in really racist uh, uh, activities. It was involved in various reactionaries activities, trying to suppress dissent from left-wing groups, infiltrate. Actually, the FBI once actually the Trotskys had as campaign manager, they well with the time they found out that their campaign manager was an agent of the FBI. So yeah, the FBI have been doing a lot of of dirty work on the American left, especially on the American radical left, and now the embrace of liberals by the FBI is almost a parody of what this election has transformed American politics in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they have absolute childlike faith in every institution of American government and empire and everything else until the moment that it turns against them and their specific agenda. It's pretty obvious that they don't really have any principled opposition to any element of an oppressive apparatus unless it's directly related to them.
I mean, even back with the issue of Nader, a lot of people said Nader is white, Nader is white, Nader is, and he was one of the few on the left that came against the attacks of Israel against Lebanon in 2006. So I think this is go beyond parody. It's always as a very strange way to take things in a very partisan way to look at reality, and it's a very strange way to that things are going to an extreme partisanship, and they are going to be even more extreme in the meantime. I don't know if you have seen some of the Senate races or the Congress, because some are very close, but I don't think that among the senatorial candidates, anyone will look like a Bernie Grad or something.
Oh no,
I think
there's no bench basically. That's why everyone has to. I really think that the key thing after this election is going to be refocusing on grassroots activism, non-electoral activism, union organizing, because there is not a quorum of genuine socialists in high levels of government that could sustain another challenge like Bernie's and have a better chance of winning. So I think parallel mobilization that works maybe in tandem with electoral stuff and maybe runs candidates at local offices in places where the threat of a bad Republican winning is less, so they can remove neo-lib Dems in favor of socialist Dems or third-party candidates where that's applicable. That should be the focus because that has to be built up, and that's going to be a long, hard work. And it's very hard to do that in America because we do have a cultural fixation on the presidency to the exclusion of the rest of the political process that is bad for the left. And it's understandable because the two great moments of genuine reform in the 20th century that have been since rolled back were both presidential-led. They were both the result of the president winning a massive landslide in the general election, 1932 with FDR and 1964 with LBJ. And because of that model, people are sort of fixated on that in the future. But there's been so much ground lost at the local level, at the grassroots level, at the level of just union density, that has to be built back up before people can start thinking realistically about reclaiming the highest corridors of power.
Yeah, I think, for example, San Francisco could be a good start point. I think it could have been a very interesting victory because Nancy Pelosi is the ultimate establishment, and I think that if they found a good candidate, they could easily force a runoff, and everything could happen. San Francisco has still some libertarians, and the libertarians in San Francisco are very strange. The other day was an article about a sex worker who was a libertarian there. So they are more countercultural than the average member of the Libertarian Party, and that kind of stuff could lead to some anti-war Democrat or even an anti-war independent or green in the runoff to get support from some libertarians there, from independents and even from some conservatives. It's quite interesting. I always think that the possibilities of the language of the left, not only in the United States but in general, has had changed, especially against after the fall of the Soviet Union, to talk about grassroots democracy or grassroots movement. But in the United States, that language is not translated to practice. I guess that one of the few candidates that to me sees as somehow honest to that message is the woman from, I think, from Washington State, Pramila Jayapal, something like that. She's, I think, of Indian origin, and she seems like a very progressive woman, and she probably will have the role that Cynthia McKinney had in minus the conspiracy theories, but I think she could bring some issues to the table that should be discussed.
Yeah, yeah. That's like I said. Yeah, it's all going to be at the local level, and hopefully people like that will pop up across the country. Yeah, it's gonna be very. It's like I said. It really will. It very could be well be the difference whether a continued and accelerating alienation in the political system that we're seeing is channeled constructively along levels of like solidarity, with class and recognizing the role of capitalism in sort of the degradation of people's everyday lives, or if sort of nihilistic Trumpian appeal is going to become more and more attractive to people. And I think it's going to be on the left to a large degree on whether they can seize this moment and reconnect people at a local level and across across issues and across geographic areas.
And something that happened in 2008 that I think was maybe in 2012 more than 2008 was that the Ron Paul campaign generated a lot of enthusiasm again in the libertarian circles, and a lot of people were thinking, who can replace Rand Paul? Who can replace because Ron Paul had been such iconic figure, and he had certainly a beyond the base appeal that probably most of libertarians could have, but. And obviously the natural heir was his son Rand, and a lot of people think that he could be a more of a centrist and he could have more support, but he actually had a terrible bad primary. He never had good numbers despite that in theory, even for the Clinton people, he was the real challenger that could make a Clinton victory difficult in general. And I guess that the lesson of that is that the left shouldn't be focused completely on what is going to be the candidate of 2020 if they want really to challenge Hillary in a primary. So in 2024, if they want to challenge the establishment then, but in what candidates could go to mayoral offices, to congressional districts, and maybe in some Senate seat that could be taken if there are not much interest in the Democratic establishment. So sometimes actually Democrats don't challenge Republicans in some areas. So I think it could be an opportunity for truly progressive, radical Democrats to take up this challenge.
Yes, yeah. Focusing on the Republicans is definitely not a good idea, because that way that's like how the Democratic establishment is able to enforce discipline basically on the left, is by conjuring up phantoms and boogeymen on the right. There needs to be a focus, on construction, right? Not defensive, offensive, like moving forward with actually positive agendas instead of trying to defend the ramparts against another barbarian invasion.
Yes, I think that could be a good strategy. I think that there are some interesting people that are doing interesting campaigns, and the local level, well, it's easier because it's it's much more cheaper than a presidential level. I was surprised by the amount of economic support that Bernie got, but on the other hand, Bernie is one of the probably of the progressives in the Democratic Party. Was the one that had more time in office, that has cultivated certain relationship with the media, despite that it wasn't necessarily the best, but he had some kind of relationship. Another campaign will have go with a scratch. For example, Dennis Kucinich, with I think that a lot of the progressive base, the most progressive base, was with him, but he was almost dismissed in 2008. He had not much track with much of the population, and he had not much coverage. Actually, Jill has said that both Bill Maher and the Daily Show had canceled her appearance there, and I think that maybe there is some push by the executives and things like that to try to marginalize not only their party candidates, but because I remember that Kucinich either was running as a Democrat and he never had much coverage. So I guess that at the local level, I think that things could be different. Maybe I could end up with this story that in upstate New York there is a baker running as a Green Party candidate, and according to a poll, he has 25% in a race that appears to be close. So it's quite a lot. He's running off a very anti-war platform, and it's quite a lot for a third-party candidate to having that kind of support. So, and he has been invited to the media. I mean, if there is a relatively small county, there is not much things happening. The congressional race is quite of the events of the year. So radios and TV channels, they're going to cover you, and that it's going to be more easy for a progressive to get that kind of coverage. Well, on the national level, it's much more difficult.
Yeah. That's why. Yeah, it's going to have to be a step-by-step process. And we always, because we're sort of entranced by the spectacle of narratives, we always want to skip the step. We just want to go right to like the big dramatic showdown, and it doesn't work that way. And it's going to be a task to push against that.
Well, I think we could leave it there, and it was very interesting and talk to you. And thanks, Matt, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Bye.
Bye-bye.